okay? Ryan, to be honest with you, I believe that that's a Logozign tool, but I am not going to answer questions about Adpow this morning. I will talk about it briefly, but I'm not in a position where I can answer detailed questions about Adpow this morning. I wish I were, and I'll talk about that more in just a little bit, okay? The next thing to remind everybody of on the webinar basics is don't be rude. You know, just let's keep this a really good experience for everybody that's here. I can't answer partners offers, and that's the reason why I was even a little hesitant to answer Ryan's question there, because I believe this is a Logozign tool, but it is not on my agenda for things to talk about in the webinars. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't. I might do a webinar this afternoon just about Adpow, but I'm limited on what I can do when we go live like this, okay? And then the last thing is that there is a link to be provided, and sometimes Pete has that for me. I don't have it. That's a link that Rose usually provides, or I depend upon somebody in the group to provide that link. And so, Pete, if you could do that for me, I would appreciate it, and we'll move on from that, okay? So what's happened with that link is Rose has put some of the most frequently asked questions in a link that makes it easy for us to see. Hello, Gene and Chris from Illinois. Good to see both of you this morning. All right, now let's get started. Last week I had this one and I never changed it, so I'm going to move right past that and into the very next thing, okay? The very next thing is I want to talk about this. I think Rose is doing an amazing job of putting up these things in the blog, and so I've left this up for one more week to remind you, jump in there and take a look at her blog post, because there's some really, really good stuff there, and I want you to get familiar with the things that Rose takes time to write about. And if you're trying to figure out what's the best way to create a blog, Rose is a really, really good example to follow. Okay, she does a really good job of injecting images in the right places to give the right kinds of descriptions and all of that. So several things that you can benefit from by simply following the Logozign blog, and most of them have to do with the skills of Rose of being able to put together a really, really good blog post. And the blog posts that she puts are very, very helpful in helping you to develop your skills as a Logozigner, okay? All right, the next thing is, this was something that was posted in the group, and it was posted by Stephanie Beck. And Stephanie is an amazing Logozign user, and she posted this. This is, and so I want to talk about this for just briefly, because I've been encouraging you to post things, and she posted this, and she asked for feedback. And so, Stephanie, I don't know if you're on or not. If you are, cool. If you're not, nothing I'm sharing here that would be any different than what we'd share in public. But notice what she does. She does something that's really important here. The call to action is to get the target audience to register now. That's really important, okay? This is a print ad. So the most important thing that she's identified here is, remember, we begin with what? We try to begin with what? And she's identified that thing that we're supposed to begin with. She's identified, what is my end goal? What's my most desired action from the person who's going to pick up this flyer, this print ad? What's the most desired action that I can get? Now, given that fact, I would have made two changes, two very minor changes in this, and I will be glad to talk to Stephanie about this. I love the fact that she put the check mark there where it says register today. I would have made the register today almost equal to the size of the 2019 Educational Congress. I would have made it much larger, and here's the reason why. This is really, really simple. Do you notice how the bottom loop in the G gets lost in the top of that image above it? It gets lost, so I don't know that that's a web address. Simple, picky, I know, but make it bold, make it slightly larger, and leave the check mark in front of it. Make it take a little bit more space, because when it's your call to action, you want to make it the most obvious thing on the page. And other than that, it's great. Here's the problem with a print ad is it has to do all the heavy lifting. Now, this is all the information they're going to get is in that print ad right there. It doesn't come with a definition like an ad on Facebook does or an ad on social media does. It comes only with what's on the print. And so in that case, I would make the call to action really, really obvious, because there's not a button I can click. You know, the great thing about a Facebook ad is there's a button I can click. The great thing about a website ad or a header ad is there's a button I can click. Here I have to take an action. And the only other thing I would say is you better make sure that the very first thing that they see when they go to that fmte.org would be the registration form. That would have to be the very first thing that they would see. But that's it. This is a great image. This was good stuff here. Okay, and so I greatly appreciate Stephanie sharing that and giving an opportunity to do that. This question came up in the group, and so I'm going to answer it here because I was on that webinar. I was with you on that webinar, and that was the recording. The request for the recording of the webinar with Jamie about Fusion. And remember, I was gone the rest of the week, and so I didn't get a chance to hit Jamie up for that when we got finished. And I was able to get a hold of him this week, and yesterday he got the webinar replay to me. I will post that in the new YouTube channel that we've created, and I will make it available in the group. I didn't get it until late last night, and so I have to do that. You'll have to watch the webinar, Bob. Yeah, it was pretty long. Jamie likes to talk. I like to keep my webinars short. I try to keep them exactly at an hour, and that's good for me. Okay. The next thing is, and Brad, here's where I was going to talk about you. Okay. Brad posted this today. I love it. I really love this. I really like, and I've used this particular mock-up several times. I think it's pretty cool. I love the flower, the florist arrangement that's around the outside of that. And Brad has been playing with this logo for a while. This was pretty cool. And so he shared that with both this image that he's created in Logozign and shared it in Mockzine. That was pretty awesome. Okay. So thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. That was a really, really good looking image that you were able to create there. The next thing is the replays will be being posted inside of the group. Okay, for right now, we're going to post them inside the group. And what we're going to do, I'll post a link to the YouTube channel there. What we're going to do from this point forward until further notice is that we will put a different definition rather than the date. The date didn't seem to accomplish the date didn't seem to accomplish because they were no longer sequential. We had that interruption in the date, and so the date doesn't make as much sense as it did before. So we're going to give a definition, and I'm going to try to give a definition to it based upon the things that we will cover for that day. And so like last week, we talked about layering and fonts. And so this was identified as layering and fonts rather than identified by last Friday's date. And I think that'll be more helpful to us, and I think it will work a little bit better to be able to post that in the group in that manner. Okay? All right. I have said everything I'm going to say about Adpow. We'll address that later, okay? The next thing is we've had some really cool, yeah, that's kind of what I thought, Sonia. So I thought it would be better going forward if we used a definition and tried to put some, because we don't have the ability right now to be able to outline that, put the outline up, and all the things that we had been doing before in the replays. So right now, given the way that things are going, we'll do it that way, okay? I loved this GIF. I absolutely loved it. I wish I could play it for you, and you'll have to go to the GIF Sign group, GIF Signers group, and watch it. But when I saw this, I thought I was going to die because, and notice my comment here was, I've been trying to hide my geekiness for all these years, and now we get to celebrate our own day. I thought that was really great. That was just this is an awesome GIF. And so, Susan, thank you for sharing that with us. I thought it was really awesome. I always kind of enjoy those. And we've had I said a while back that we didn't have enough GIFs going into the group. And then all of a sudden we got a bunch over the last 2 weeks. So thank you all for doing that. I'm not going to be able to share all of them, but I'll share some of them as we go. This was a great example of that Lauren posted about the soccer tournament, which I don't understand anything about soccer. I know nothing about it. I have great friends who are soccer maniacs and love the game of soccer. I don't understand it because I was a basketball player, and it seems to me like everybody's upside down. They're using their feet instead of their hands, and it just confuses me. So, but this was great. This is a great video that's taken from multiple images and that created an awesome looking GIF out of this that was downloaded as an MP4. Okay, so it was really, really cool. Thank you, Lauren, for doing that. I thought it was pretty awesome. Okay. Yeah, Kim, that's always kind of the way I felt about it, was upside down. Announcement today, the Logozign version 0.0.7 is available, and I'm going to share some things about that in a little bit. Yes, I understand it is football and not soccer, but I live in the Southeast, and football is played in college, and it's a local kind of thing. You know, it is a cult in the Southeast. Okay. All right. Yes, Sanjay, it is definitely a cult in the Southeast. Okay, the next thing, we'll talk about Logozign in just a little bit, okay? And the next thing is, these are the new features in Logozign. Now it has containers. We had to remove the containers in the previous version. Containers are back. There's a crop tool now for what you download, which is awesome. We've added a whole bunch of Google fonts have been added into the platform, and they're now easier to identify. The icon spacing has taken place in Auto Center for the logo. All of those things are great enhancements on this version, and it gives us a good path going forward. Okay. The next thing, and we've had several questions about this, the next thing is, I want to remind you of something that we had done a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to bring this up again, and that is, do you remember this little poll that we took where I asked, what was your goal? Were you using the tools that we make available to you for pleasure or for profit? And there are many of us that use the tools for profit. And so when we talk about other products, oftentimes we're doing that because we want to help people who are in the business to make a profit. And so I'm going to share, that's a really good question, Joe. I can't do that right now, but if somebody would grab that link and drop it in so Joe can have it. Joe wants to know what the link to the Facebook group is so that he can join that Facebook group. And definitely somebody post that for me. I have to have all of those things shut off going into this. So thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. Because the vast majority of our users are intending to make a profit, we oftentimes introduce you to products that will help you to do that, okay? And one of those products is Adpow. The whole purpose of a business is to be able to sell things to people who are your potential clients, all right? And those potential clients are extremely important. And the way in the internet world, the way you get potential clients is you build an email list. Adpow is intended to help you to grow that email list. This is a never-ending challenge to figure out, how do I grow an email list so that I have people who have indicated that they're interested in buying a product. And so Adpow was introduced to do that. There are still about 15 hours left to be able to purchase it. Yeah, listen, I don't know how to answer that question, Arthur. I don't know how to answer that question. And I don't know where the bonuses are at. I don't have access to that stuff. That's Rose's department, and Rose is not on with us at this point in time. So I will do my best to try to address what's the purpose of Adpow, let's see. The problem is I can't give you the bonuses. I'll share this with you. I can't give you the bonuses because I have no way to verify the fact that you're a purchaser. So I just can't do that. I can't do that in this webinar because I don't have any way to verify the fact that you're a purchaser. That's the thing to remember. Okay, that's why sometimes I get limited on what I'm able to do because of that very reason. All right. Yeah, the best thing to do when Ginger, thank you for making that comment. Ginger says I'm in the same boat. Maybe we won't really get access until after the primary launch. That's my guess. I don't know if that's a true statement or not, but I never get in a hurry when there's a brand new launch because I know that sometimes things just go awry. A link gets broken or something gets wacky, and you just have to be patient at that time. Arthur, understand this. This is a new product, and MailChimp's not going to be the only integration. I can't say that for a fact, but remember, this is an out the door kind of thing. We'll try to get as much stuff built into it as possible. All right, let's move on from that. Just wanted to share that with you. This is kind of what the dashboard looks like. I do have an account, and I have started checking out that account. You can download that. You know, thank you for mentioning that, Olga. You know, when in a download, I'll do my best, Sanja, to answer just a couple of questions. I don't want to take the entire webinar up with that, and I really don't. I just wanted to introduce you to that. It's better for you to go to the sales page and watch the webinar than or watch the videos on the sales page than it is for me to take this time to do that with, okay? And I will share that link. Give me just a second. Let me share the link, okay? I will give you the link to the I'll give you the link. I can give you the link to the sales page. Okay. Best to go listen to that. That's probably going to give you better information, particularly about the offer, the bonuses, the additional things that are being done there. Okay. So that's the link to the sales page. Okay. All right. I actually ran 3 campaigns quickly here, just quickly. The first one, to get the Wi-Fi password, that's just a screenshot from one of the styles that's there. The other 2 are ones that we ran just for fun. We built them last night to try to get so that I would have enough information to be able to do this for you this morning, so you can get a chance to take a look at it. But this is what gets posted, okay, in social media, and this is where the person gets the opportunity to be able to share. So word of mouth promotional sharing, and you know, it's like, hey, I checked this out, it's really cool. You might want to check it out too, that kind of thing. It gives you an opportunity to be able to share with your audience something that might be meaningful and beneficial to them. And so it takes advantage of that social component of social media and utilizes that to help you to build a list in the process of that by delivering quality content to somebody else, okay? All right, the next thing, I tend to agree with you, Mark. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but I tend to agree with you. Remember, we have a suite of tools, okay? And if you'll notice here, this one right here, guess where that came from, okay? We'll move on. Okay, we have a suite of tools. If you have questions, if you have questions, then feel free to post those in the group with the hashtag FridayWebby, and I will address those either in the group and or in the webinar. Okay, I want to make sure that people get their questions answered, and I want to make sure that people are over whatever obstacle gets in their way. Okay, and we do our best to try to make sure that inside that group, that when somebody gets stumped, that they get an answer quickly. That doesn't mean that's not support. The group is not, that's not a support group, but it is a great place to go, hey, this happened to me, what do I do? You know? Yes, Brad. We're familiar with that being over budget. Logozign updates. I'm going to open up Logozign here in just a minute, but I want to share with you one of the coolest things is this ability to select the color based upon the component that you're in, whether it's the name, the slogan, the symbol, or the container itself. And so you can change those components dynamically or individually throughout the logo itself. Okay. And then finally, I want to spend just a little time talking about gradient backgrounds. All right. Just a little bit of time talking about gradient backgrounds because I think they can be kind of cool. You can see in this particular case, kind of enhance that. And we're going to play with that for just a little bit so you get a chance to experience that whole gradient background thing. And then we will give you some tips and tricks that might be helpful in using gradient backgrounds and or things in Logozign. And then I'll do my best to answer any questions that may have lingered throughout the remainder of the day. Okay, so having said all of that, what I want to do today is I want to stop sharing that screen and move to the next one. So give me a second to stop sharing this screen. And this is where that bad connection might become an issue for me. It doesn't look like it's an issue for the webinar, though. I think everybody's had a pretty good experience here with the webinar. So let me get the correct screen. It's going to be slow to switch here, though. I need to get two things open, and then I can do that. Okay. And I'm going to start with the Logozign. Start there. Tell me if you see that okay. It did not come up right on my screen. Okay, looks like it's come up right in the webinar. All right. Get my chat back so I can see. All right, good. Let me adjust this just a little bit so I can see your chat and my screen. All right. Does that look good to everybody? Can you see what we've got going on here? All right. 4 things that are involved here. We have the name, we have the slogan, we have a symbol, and we have a container and or a background. And so given those 4 primary components, which we've talked about the last few weeks, remember this, your logo, regardless of what it is, does not just hang in space. It's going to go on some type of it's either going to have a white background on it, or it's going to be transparent, and it's going to go in a place on your website, on wherever you're going to put it on your business card, that's going to have a background on it. So you have to keep that in mind as you look at, as you build your logo, okay? And that's why this becomes so important, because sometimes it's going to go on a black background and I can't use a black color. So I'm going to have to do multiple versions of the same logo so that I can use it in multiple applications. Does that make sense to everybody? And when I do that, I want to be able to add some color to it that's going to work. You can't have a single, this is the confusion that people have. And I met with a client on Tuesday night and he said, let's develop a logo here. And I said, okay, so what are we going to do with that? And he began to tell me what he wanted to do with that. I said, no, we're going to have 4 of those. He said, well, why 4? I said, because strong likelihood that it's going to go on a dark background, and so it has to be light. There's a good likelihood that it's going to go on a letterhead, so it's got to be dark, so it shows up on a light color background. There's a good likelihood you're going to put it on a business card. So do you understand what we're doing with that? You've got to give them multiple options. And the great thing is that you can go through here and do this very easily now, okay? And so let's put a slogan with this. Just call it that, logo made easy. We'll capitalize the M. And just do this very quickly here. Now, I can play with this, all right? I can align those things now, which I couldn't do before. So now I have the ability to be able to center it, okay? Yes, if you're going to put it in a container, make sure you just select transparent. That's correct. So I have the ability to do that. The other thing to remember in a logo is this is different than a letter, all right? And if I'm putting this in a letter, I may want my spacing to be a little further apart so that it's comfortable to read. In a logo, it looks a little better if I make it tighter together. Does that make sense? I'm going to show that in just a minute, Samuel. Does it make sense? Yeah, we'll get to that in just a minute. I'm going from left to right here. But I want you to see how much different that looks just by changing that spacing right there. It makes a drastic difference in how that lettering looks, okay? I can make it larger, and I may want to even make that, see, that's normal right there, but that looks a little broad for a logo. But if I do that, it looks a lot better in a logo. I hope you're understanding that. We're going to go over here, and I'm going to change this to, and I like the way these are laid out now. This gives you a little bit better look here. If we pick that one, all right. Now I have the, but do you see this? The same thing's true here with this. I may want that to be. And see, this is the way it would appear normally, but I may want to move it in a little tighter together. And it makes a big difference when you do that. Okay? Just want you to understand that sometimes nudging those letters closer together works really nice inside of a logo. And before, we just had it was whatever it was, whatever that font's supposed to be, whatever Kearney's supposed to be on the sides of that font. But now we have the ability to be able to move them closer together. Have all kinds of cool fonts over here that you can tap in. Okay, and you've got these are my system fonts right here. So cool stuff, right? Go over to my slogan. And if I want to make that the same color, I can do that. And but I like this color box right here. If I have something that I want to make sure that I capture that color, okay. And there's my eyedropper, all right. And so say I really like that color right there. I'm just going to save that, okay. I saved the logo, but I captured that color, which I really like. All right. This is the system fonts right here, Olga. That's kind of the question that you just asked. If you have those fonts on your computer, then those are system fonts that are pulled in here. I'll give you an example. This is a font that I got for a client, and it's right there. It's that Casteller, okay? And that's a font that I collected for a client, and those are system fonts. Let me give you a clue. We talked about this at length last week, okay? Mark, let me explain that because I talk about that at the very beginning of the, we're going to talk about a variety of products in that suite of products. We're starting with Logozign today because Logozign was the product that had a new release last night. The Google fonts are all right here. These are all the fonts that are Google fonts right here. Okay. All right, we are, now we'll go over here and take a look at the symbol. okay? And I can upload an SVG file, or I can type a word in here and do a search for this. We'll see what we can come up with. All right, so I have a whole bunch of symbol options that are available based upon that word, okay? And if I wanted to mark it that I was going to write emails for a business's autoresponder, if I was going to do that, and now all of a sudden the program is freezing up, that's back to that limited resources kind of thing, the poor network message I was getting a minute ago. Brad, I'm not sure what you're talking about there about the home key. If you can elaborate, I would appreciate it. I would. Is anybody hearing me at all? I think we're locked up. I may have to. Okay, good. I'm glad you're hearing me. This may be a bit of an issue here. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see if we can get this back. Okay. So let me do that. Stop sharing my screen. And got to see. Sometimes when you're doing a webinar and you've got a couple of programs open, which I have to have for this webinar, you'll make a program crash, and it looks like that may have been what I just did. So let me try one more time. Because I did save that, so I wasn't really sure what Brad was talking about because I hit save and it saved it. So let's see if this will work again. All right. If y'all give me a second here so I can get this back where it belongs. All right. This is what we were working on, okay? And I went to the symbol container right here, and I put in the word write, and that's where we were at. So I was going to grab a symbol and add to this logo. All right. And I will take the one I looked at earlier, which is that one right there. Now, have the ability to be able to resize that, but also I can move it closer or move it further away. All right, and that works well regardless of whether I am like this, which is nice when you get to the next step, and the next step is I may want to put a container around it, okay? Oh, I got you. I got you. Yes. Save instead of just going to the home container. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Good. All right. Yeah. Now we can nudge this logo in the direction that we want it to go. So if I'm putting a container around the outside of it, so we'll go to the container now, and I can mark this for a transparent background, because that's most of the time you're going to save your logo as a transparent background, okay? And yes, we can change the color of the icon. So I can do this. I can change the color of that icon. Right here is my color button, and I can make that a little bit darker than the rest of the colors if I want to. And but I can change that now. Somebody asked me a while ago, what is the container? So here are the containers. The background color and or the transparency of the background is determined on this container button, okay? And I can put a container, and these are the containers. I can put a container around the outside of this, okay? Like this one, okay? Now I go back up here to the top and I can resize that container. Now, if this is too far apart, I can come back over here and I can move that down a little bit and I can tighten that up. So I've got a good space between here and here so they kind of fit. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, I can also change the color of the container, all right? Before somebody asks, yes, I can change the color of the container as well. So now those things all kind of work together, right? Yeah, I agree, Brad, and maybe sometime in the future we'll be able to do that. If I wanted to move the icon to the right, that's a good question. So the symbol is the icon, okay, because I have icon and monogram. The symbol is the icon, and if I want to move it to the right, I can do that, okay. But then the container's made for for this style right here. I can also do this style right here, but the containers made for this. The containers right now are designed for that type of a container, okay. L, you, and me, and those italics. I know. All right, so that's what the containers are. They can be put around the outside, and then my size and my shape is going to maintain the same in this particular case. If I want to see what that's going to look like on a white background, I can do that. If I want to test this for the color background that I've got that may be on my website, for example, this might be the color on my website. So I got a variety of blue colors here. That might be the color on my website. I go, wow, that's not going to work. I really thought that was cool, but it's not going to work. So that gives me a chance to test that out, okay? Olga, yes. Yes, that's how they download is in a PNG format. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that in just a second, okay? Yes, but if you do the invert, it will look kind of cool. Correct. So there's just some really cool things. Now you see what the invert's doing. What the invert's doing is it's making this background color become the color of the logo, and the color that the logo was, in this case, becomes the color of the background. Okay? All right, any questions so far? I think this is a great improvement in Logozign, and I'm pretty excited about it. I think this is going to be pretty awesome. Now, if I want to take that back to transparent, I just do that, and it goes back to its original transparent design. Okay. So again, it's what you're trying to accomplish. You want to know what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. What do I want this to do for me? You know, what I do with these frequently is because I never find an icon that does exactly what I want it to do. So these become great headers for various sections of my website. And I think it's pretty cool to be able to do that or offer that as a service to somebody, or even somebody who's in the app business to do that. All right. Any other questions about Logozign? Because I want to jump out of it and get into gradient backgrounds for a little bit. Okay. But before I close this, if you have a question, let me know, because we have a little count. I have a little countdown going on inside my head. I think this was a great improvement in the product, and I'm glad for it. So big congratulations to John for what he's done so far. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing this, close that, and I'm going to move to the canvas with Logozign. Okay, so give me a second to get moved over there, and I will share the screen. We'll talk about gradient backgrounds for just a minute. And then we're going to be done in just a few minutes. So now let's talk about gradient backgrounds for a moment. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, good. All right, thank you. Let's take a look at these gradient backgrounds, and I have to go a little slower because I have to switch back and forth between chat and the screen. It's particularly because I'm going to be talking about gradient backgrounds here. So watch. This is what I did here. Was I just started taking a look at, okay, what's going to accomplish my purpose? I want to show that something's happening here. Okay, that's my goal. I've told you everything I know about Adpow, everything. There won't be any additional things that I know this morning. And like I said, that doesn't mean I won't do a webinar this afternoon. You won't get contacted that there's going to be a webinar this afternoon. But this is not training for Adpow. Okay. So let's play with this for just a little bit. Let's take a look and see if we can do something that would enhance this. First of all, that doesn't work with this color I have going on over here. All right. So the question is, would it work if I went this way? Maybe it would. All right. Do you see what we're doing? And all I want to do is I want to just flip back and forth here and try to figure out which of these is going to accomplish my purpose. And I may find something that really does exactly what I want it to do. And I kind of like that, actually. But in order to make this center stand out a little bit more, I may want to lighten that color just a little bit, okay? And in order to do that, switch over here. And if it'll go, there we go. And you can play with your colors on the outside individually here. All right. Put that back like that. Okay. Now, one thing that you notice is that these are gray instead of this black. And I'm telling you, black is an awesome color with black is an awesome color when you use it with green. Okay. With what end in mind did I choose the fonts? And that's a really good question. And you almost have me stumped with that question, because what I had in mind when I picked that font was that I was trying to communicate, you know, this is what everybody does. This is kind of the normal stuff. And you have an opportunity to enhance that. The whole purpose is to talk about enhancing that. And out on the other side comes something far greater. Okay, that was kind of what we're trying to do. All right, does that make sense? I kind of like the fact that this color, as it fades this direction, kind of fades into this, so it's kind of blowing out of that. All right. What I don't like is that this is two words, and so I have to have two lines instead of one line. I really don't care for that, but that's the only other thing. All right, but that's kind of what I was trying to accomplish. And so when you switch this around, you can kind of see that just by paging through this, you can see that there's some things that you can accomplish just by playing with the colors of your. You see? That gradient background becomes really cool. I just think it's really a cool way to do some really interesting kinds of things with it. Okay. Now, I could also, I like this, but I can play with that like this. Okay. Or like this. And it depends on what you want to try to communicate. But you can switch sides, you can play with, and if you're not familiar with using the gradient background, there's some really, really cool stuff that you can do, okay? And that's what I wanted you to see today, is that there's some pretty awesome things that you can do with this gradient background. You can play with it, and you can use it to accomplish some really cool stuff. I actually did the gradient background as an underlay on a transparent image, and it is in the group. So you'll see that there. I may actually do that just because it's kind of fun. But being able to show this, like I can switch this over here like this, and move that angle to this side. I can do some wild stuff with that. Okay, there you go. Okay, I'm really not having lag issues. Some people say that they do. That may have more to do with your internet speed and your browser. Remember that we have because SaaS used to be a fairly new thing, and now it's not. And so you will open up multiple SaaS platforms in your browser, and what happens is that your cache gets full, and you got to dump that cache occasionally, and it improves your experience drastically. Okay. Yeah, I kind of like the way that looks. I would have to change this up here. And what I would do with this, probably, I don't know yet, but what I would do with that would be something like that, you know? So what do you think? Do you see how cool you can do things with the gradient background? And you can make that look pretty awesome if you want to do that. All right, so that's the first thing. That's the very first thing that you can do with gradient background. Now, another thing that you could and should do is you should always save that so that you can come back to it later if you need to. So I've just saved that whole thing as a group, and now I can delete it without any concern. And so I now have that gradient background, but let's do this. Remember, and I should have it here handy. So let me find out. Remember this guy? Let's switch around here, and let's go back to the product cover. And let's take this guy like this. And we're going to play with the gradient background for a while by doing this. And take this guy right here. I'm going to duplicate that. And now I have that. So I'm going to flip it. I'm going to have this like this. Okay. And what I want to do now is reduce the opacity of this drastically. And you see how we got that color over there? So I'm going to go back over here to this gradient background, and I'm going to do this with it. And you begin to see the difference that makes. Now, if I reduce the opacity of this a little bit, and it starts to have that lighter color show through, it looks drastically different. So you can use the gradient background as an underlying filter, if you will, for the for images that you want to add something to them from the back side rather than from the front side. I could have switched to a solid background here, which leaves it like that, and gone up here and done a filter, but the filter would have overlaid on top rather than show through. And so what happens is I have this, not exactly what I looked for, but when I switch back to here, then I have kind of what I'm looking for, okay? If I had done this in a darker color like this, and switched it like that, then you start to get, and you can do some really interesting things with that, okay? This is like a filter, only different, all right? It's kind of like a filter, only it operates differently. Now, let's do one more just for fun. All right, and then we'll be done for the day. I want to do one more here and show you if I've got this handy in the uploads right here close, so it doesn't take long to do it. This is one we did a long time ago, and I should have it right here someplace. Let me look. We had a little bit more time than I had anticipated, so I want to do this. All right. Remember this and this, okay? This was the overlay that we put here. So I'm going to move this, again, the layering thing. I'm going to move it to the back. All right. And that does not, I didn't cut the hole out of the middle of that. Excuse me. That's not good. Do we have time to do that? Maybe I have time to do it. Then you'll see why I'm doing it, okay? So let me keep everything on the outside here. Make sure I've caught all of those colors and get rid of that. We'll save that. May take a little longer to save. Brad, I'm not sure what your question is. Save those cool settings. I'm not sure what you're saying. Yeah, it may take a little while for that to load. I didn't think about how long it was going to take to load in this particular case, simply because we're having a network issue here. So it may take a little longer to do that. But what I was going to do is I was going to take, let me just refresh and we'll stop. I'll talk through this because we're down to 2 minutes left. All right. And we'll see if it'll refresh here. Almost wouldn't let me change screens a minute ago. So here I am. Let me get rid of this. And in this case, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go back over to this, and I'm going to do this. All right. Now I'm going to take this image and reduce the opacity of it. And you can see what happens when I do that. All right. I can highlight the interior part of this. And I can do that by reversing that. You can see we can get a change in look if you want to do that. Now, obviously, if I had the overlay around the outside of this, it would accomplish what I was trying to accomplish a while ago. And but I can't do that. I don't have the overlay handy, so sorry about that. But you understand what we're doing. By reducing the opacity of this, I'm allowing that gradient to come through in the middle here. All right. And that's not going to work at all. But you understand what I'm talking about here, right? That we're letting that underlying color, we're letting that underlying, the brightness of that underlying piece show through. It would look really good if I had the overlay around the outside of it, and the overlay was dark. So all you would see is the radiant in the middle, and it would start growing out. Okay. With that, we're going to wrap up. All right. My grandson would say, "We done it." So it's time to stop doing this and move on. All right. Thank you so much for joining me on this Friday. I apologize for not having all the answers that you want for Adpow, but watch, there may be a webinar soon about that. So just hang in there. We'll get that taken care of. Thank you for giving me your time and your attention on this wonderful, beautiful Friday. Go have a great weekend. I'll look forward to seeing you right back here next Friday, same time, same place.